Hey guys, this is my second part on my thoughts on Andor. If you haven't seen the first part, please watch that first. It is 10 minutes long, well, 9 minutes long, but some of this wouldn't make sense if you didn't see the first part, okay? All right, so now for those who didn't listen to that, I want to stress this out. I am a big Star Wars fan, okay? You can't tell that from my page because I don't post many Star Wars videos on here, but just please understand I'm a big fan of Star Wars. I love it. I love the universe. I love the franchise. I love the characters. I love most of the shows. I love most of the movies. I'm a big fan of Star Wars, okay? So there's the context you need as well. But these are my thoughts on Andor as a whole. It's not like one specific episode, but my thoughts on the whole show as of now. Okay, so I am recording this after only the first 2 batches of Andor Season 2 have come out. So if you see this video later, that's the only context I have, okay? So I am still trying to root for the show. I'm really excited to see how they tie it into Rogue One when they eventually get right up to that spot. I am interested in if it will actually reshape how I watch Rogue One and even A New Hope. I don't know if it will. They're saying it will, but so far I've seen no evidence for that. Yeah, but again, I'm rooting for the final half of the season, but I just don't know. It just seems like the show is pushing things just for the sake of pushing it. I know in season 1, they wanted to get an F-bomb in there, and I'm like, for what reason? Just so that you can have articles coming out praising you for being the first Star Wars show to do that? For being the first piece of media to have it? Because it would have. I mean, they even got things for adding the S word in there because that wasn't really common in Star Wars. Yeah, in terms of on-screen stuff. It's been in some of the books and whatnot, but in terms of on-screen, that was the first time, and there were articles coming out about, oh, this word's in Star Wars now. So obviously the F word would have gotten that to an extra level. But I'm like, for what purpose? Is your whole purpose just to make headlines? Or is it to make a good Star Wars show? And on top of that, I personally, and I know some people, maybe even many people will disagree with me on this, I don't think when you make an IP thing, I don't think you should do I just want to make a good story that uses ABC in this IP. I think when it comes to IP, you need to do, I want to do a good blank story. So for example, in Star Wars, I want to make a good Star Wars story. Not, I want to make a good story that's set in the Star Wars universe. And I know some people have the opposite mindset because they'd rather just have a good story. But considering you're in the Star Wars universe, I would rather it be a good Star Wars story first, and then it can be a really great story. There's some filler episodes of Bad Batch that I just don't enjoy, but then there's some filler episodes of Bad Batch that I do enjoy because they're good Star Wars stories. They're average stories at best, but they're good Star Wars stories, right? And so it makes it that much more enjoyable. So yeah, I'm not a fan of Andor. I'm really not. I also, a big thing I don't like is the whole making the rebels look more nuanced. I don't like it. I don't. Now maybe, perhaps George Lucas had the same mindset. I don't know. But that could have been his mindset, that some rebels weren't as good and that they had a rough history to get to being the good guys or whatever, and it's more gray. He might have that mindset, but it wasn't shown on screen at the very least, right? And I don't like the whole thing of the good guys being more nuanced. I don't like the whole thing of they had to do a bunch of bad things to get to this good place. Luthen as a character, I can't stand him because of all these bad calls he makes, and you're supposed to still look at it and kind of root for him. Not entirely, but somewhat. And I'm like, I don't like it. And the argument is, well, that's how real wars are. Okay, again, I'm not going to Star Wars to watch real war stuff. Is it a war? Yes, it's in the title. But it's not a real war. I am not going to Star Wars to see realism. That's not why I go to Star Wars. Because if I did, then I would be like, well, lightsabers don't exist. Well, when they're out in outer space, they need to always have helmets. Well, blah, blah, all of these dumb things, right? Oh, well, explosions shouldn't make sounds in space, blah, blah, whatever. I don't go to Star Wars for realism. That's not why I go to Star Wars. Star Wars is not real. It's in a galaxy far, far away, a long time ago, and that's the premise of it. It's not supposed to be realistic. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's not something they should shy away from. Also, another thing I don't like about Andor is it's not fun. It's not fun. Anytime I watch it, I walk away kind of depressed, truthfully. Star Wars, for me, I love going away, wow, like that was really great, and like feeling hopeful. Now, I'm not saying every Star Wars project has done that either. Like, there are definitely episodes of even the Clone Wars that you walk away and you feel somber or sad or other different emotions similar along that mindset, right? Like, I know this is not an Andor specific issue, but Andor, it's like every episode, not just an episode here or there. Or not just an arc. And I get also, well, the argument is that it's a challenging time and you're supposed to see that this is the state of the galaxy. I get that. I get the mindset for it. I still don't like it. Rebels was in the same time period, and guess what? That was a hopeful, optimistic, fun show, right? It was in the dark time. But it made it in a way that still got the point across that the Empire is terrible, still got the point across that it's a dark, terrible time, but the episodes were fun, and you still had a hopeful feeling every time you, just about every time you walked away from watching that show. That also isn't to say that the emotions don't hit, or like you should be smiling the whole time. Yay, Kanan died, woohoo! No, I'm not saying you can't have sadness or whatever in Star Wars. I just mean at the end you should feel that sense of hope, and Andor doesn't have that, and it's just not fun either. Skeleton Crew, on the other hand, was a really fun show. It also didn't exactly feel like Star Wars until the second half of the show. Initially, it felt very much like a Spielberg thing, or I don't know, like Treasure Planet or The Goonies, or things like that. It very much felt like that. It didn't feel like Star Wars, but it was a fun show. And then later, as the series progressed, it did feel more like Star Wars. And truthfully, I told people, I'm like, for me, Skeleton Crew feels like what Star Wars would have become if George had kept doing Star Wars throughout the 80s and 90s, right? So pretend we live in a world where the original trilogy did happen, right? And then after episode 6, he kept going with content right away instead of taking a gap. That's kind of how I could see the Star Wars universe would have gone, especially with his friendship with Spielberg, especially with the success of films like E.T. And The Goonies and things like that. I do think the Star Wars universe would have kind of gone in that direction, but obviously that didn't happen. But with that mindset and the idea of, yeah, that probably could have happened if Lucas would have kept going, I was able to still associate it with Star Wars. Andor, I just can't. It even has familiar characters, and I just can't associate it with Star Wars. It's got nothing for me. Even when stormtroopers appear, I'm finally like, good, a stormtrooper, let's go. Not that I'm rooting for the stormtrooper, but you know. But I just can't. So if you come at me in the comments of saying things like, you're probably just someone who wants fan service all the time, or you're probably someone who just wants Dave Filoni breathing in cameos every 5 seconds. No, like, stormtroopers literally appear in this, and it hasn't changed my thoughts on the series. Mon Mothma is literally an original trilogy character, and then slightly in the prequels. Like, she is an established character, doesn't do anything. Bail, even with the recast, he's still like an established character, nothing. So like, that argument doesn't stand, even when they bring in these established characters. It still hasn't changed it. I'm not a fan of Andor. I'm not, and I think it's a real shame of how it's treating Star Wars, in my opinion.